Hello and welcome to this episode of Shatterdice Reviews. And today's board game review is
Bardsung by Steamforged Games. You will notice this review has no video footage, and that is because I recently had a clear out of some of my games, and Bardsung didn't make the cut. So unfortunately, I will be cobbling together pictures from around the internet to try and support this review. Bardsung is a game for 1 to 4 players set in an epic fantasy world filled with orcs, goblins, and a whole list of nasty, gribbly monsters. Players will take on the role of a mercenary band who get swept up in an adventure that takes them into the Ancient Forge, a deep underground dungeon where monsters roam freely. The campaign book is huge, with 30 chapters, each chapter consisting of multiple quests that will provide you with hours upon hours of gameplay. So, how does Bardsung work? Each player picks a hero to play, and then you begin at Chapter 1. Gameplay in Bardsung is quite basic. Each character receives 2 actions and will use them to fight their way through the underground dungeon that is randomly generated using card decks. Along the way, they will encounter enemies and challenges before finally reaching the exit. Let's start with exploration. The heroes begin on the entrance map tile, which is placed atop a huge board, which is quite cleverly designed to mark out the play area. It's a huge board, but with it you know the limits of the dungeon. It will never grow bigger than this board. There are several types of quests in Bardsung, but most of the time you will be doing the basic dungeon delve, where you search for the exit. The entrance tile is placed on the southern edge of the board, as close to the centre as possible. Heroes can explore through the 3 doorways to develop the dungeon. Each time an explore action is taken, the active player draws from one of these card decks, either rooms or passages. The system is quite simple. If you are on a room tile, reveal a passage. On a passage, reveal a room. Eventually, you will build the dungeon out toward the marked edge of the board. And this is your objective. For the heroes to find the exit, they must reveal a tile and place it such that it goes over this inner boundary, but not the outer boundary. If the tile would cover the outer boundary, it cannot be placed and is replaced with a dead-end token. The heroes will have to find another way. If the tile does just cover the inner boundary, you place an exit token, and any hero may spend an action in its space to escape. While all this is happening, you will be chased through the dungeon by an echo token, which is like a roaming random monster that moves at the start of each turn on a dice roll. If it captures you, spawn a random monster and prepare to fight. This brings us on to fights. Combat is very simple in Bardsung. Each enemy has a reference card with a target number in the top corner. Roll equal or higher than this number after applying any modifiers, and you hit the enemy. If an enemy is making an attack, it is the same procedure, equal or higher after modifiers, and you defend the attack. There are lots of modifiers in Bardsung, and so this is what really determines whether you hit or not. All to hit rolls are made on a d20, but if you do hit, you will make a damage roll, which uses a different die for each hero. For a magic class hero, this could be a d4, whereas a warrior class may use a d8. Despite being called a damage roll, it is really just to see if you score a regular hit or a critical hit. Each enemy card has a crit symbol and a number on it. Once again, equal it or beat it and you will score a critical hit. So what does that do? Well, in Bardsung, each hero has a number of small cards which represent the attack they make. These are ability cards, and you can only pick one card for an attack and only use it once per turn. So no using your strongest attack twice. Each card will have 2 or sometimes 3 boxes running across the middle. These will be labelled hit, crit and miss, and will tell you which effect to apply. Most of the time a hit will deal damage, a crit will deal extra damage, or apply an effect, such as area of effect damage, or a condition like bleeding. Finally, some of the skill cards will have the miss entry, allowing you to do something even if you miss. This will usually be something like moving a single space to help avoid any counterattacks. Most enemies in Bardsung have 2 health points, meaning enemies often go down quick. Some, however, when defeated, will instead of being killed, you will flip their card and they will have a new set of stats based on their wounded card face. This may make them easier or harder, but in either case it gives them 2 extra health. There are also boss enemies, who work in a similar fashion, but have multiple reference cards. Each time you inflict enough damage, remove one of those cards. Remove them all and the boss dies. It's really a very simple combat system, where a fight can be over in a flash or go on and on, as the dice gods laugh at you. Although each character is equipped with a weapon, they serve only to modify dice rolls. This means loot is quite disappointing in Bardsung. That excitement of getting a new sword or armour doesn't really happen in this game, as you find magic jewels that you attach to your weapon or armour for, yep, you guessed it, dice bonuses. And many of the loot cards don't even have artwork on them, making them bland and boring. That's all I really have to say on fights and loot. It serves its purpose, but there's no real wow factor here. So next let's take a look at the initiative track. This determines the order in which characters and enemies act during a turn. Each character has this special initiative card, and each monster also uses its reference card as an initiative card. At the start of the turn, each of these cards are shuffled and dealt out along this track printed on the game board. The track is one of the most strategic aspects of the game, as many character abilities allow the manipulation of cards on this track. This lets the players have more control over when they act during a turn. It's worth noting the cards are randomly dealt whether enemies are on the board or not, so those skills to manipulate turn order are still useful, as sometimes the activation order, even when only exploring the board, can be important. Oftentimes, you will want to let characters lagging behind activate first, and the last hero to activate should be the one to press forward into the unknown. This is because if a new tile is placed on the board that causes monsters to spawn, a new turn begins, and that means shuffling the initiative cards. So you might be able to see the issue here. If the first hero to activate reveals a tile and starts a fight, any heroes who have not activated will lose their turn. This can be very frustrating, as players wait for their turn, then may have to wait again if they are unlucky and end up last on the initiative track. So now we come to the last part of the dungeon crawl, challenges. There are 2 challenge decks, combat challenges and encounter challenges. When a fight starts, you will draw one of these combat challenges that will augment the rules to the fight in some way. An encounter challenge is a little different, as you come across a pit trap, a treasure chest, rusted lever, or lost child, or some other random event. These almost always require a hero to pass a skill test of some kind. Depending on the encounter, you may be rewarded for passing or punished for failing. Some of these encounters are quite interesting and can cause other cards to be added to the encounter deck as a mini story arc unfolds over the course of several quests. So that's about it for gameplay. Bardsung is very simple and comes across to me as a bit of an attempt to make a modernised hero quest, keeping gameplay and mechanics light and accessible. Now, let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. Well, as I said, the game is accessible. It's easy to learn and easy to teach, so that's a big plus. The story is also very deep, with a lot of branching paths and alternate endings. Some of the challenge cards are great too, adding a real twist to the game and making heroes think about their best course of action. The initiative track is also pretty good, allowing some real strategizing around turn order. Then there are the miniatures. These are some of the best board game miniatures I have seen. They have fantastic detail, and a bit of paint really brings them to life. The game is almost worth getting for these miniatures alone. The bad. Well, firstly is that initiative shuffle at the start of every turn. This is an example of a good mechanic design being implemented badly. It is not fun having to break off to shuffle these cards every 2 minutes. It just becomes tedious. The worst part of this game, though, is its campaign structure. Each chapter consists of multiple quests that are almost the same exact thing. This gets repetitive very fast, and the story is spread out sporadically over the chapter, not between each quest. This means winning or losing a quest feels almost the same, as you are basically resetting and starting again either way. When you consider how many quests are in a chapter and how many chapters are in the campaign, this goes beyond tedious and becomes a mind-numbing bore. Combat also becomes a tedious affair, as many of your ability cards will do pretty much the same thing. It just boils down to roll this number, remove monster. The ugly. The map tiles in Bardsung, while high quality, are very bland, just chamber and passageways with nothing much to look at. They are very nice chambers and passageways, but they are also very empty chambers and passageways. That's about it really. Unfortunately, Bardsung tries very hard to become a classic dungeon crawler, but falls way short and gets bogged down into this repetitive, boring slog of a game. When I first started playing this game, the excitement of the campaign really pulled me in, and if that had continued, this game would have been not very boring. But due to such levels of repetitiveness, I have no choice but to rate this game as mind-numbing. The only way I would recommend this is at a very steep discount, and even then, I'd only get it for the miniatures. I will add, when I bought this game, it was in a Black Friday sale for £50, and the registered retail price is usually somewhere around £120. For £50, it's perhaps worth it for the miniatures, but the idea of paying over £100 for this board game is absolutely preposterous to me.
Well, I'm bored of reviewing this game now. Bye.